All right. So this Startup Club newsletter, you know the one for entrepreneurs.
Yeah. You know,
This issue has like practical advice on starting a business and book recommendations and even a look at how AI can be used.
oh, cool.
What really got me though was this four sticky note business plan. Kind of weird.
Yeah, that does sound kind of strange.
And they recommended a book that seems to be like against the whole competition thing.
Huh.
So should we like dive in, see what's up?
Sounds good. The Startup Club newsletter is always like a good mix of actionable tips and then some concepts that really make you think. It's a great resource, for anyone, no matter where they are in their like entrepreneur journey. It doesn't matter if they're like just brainstorming or ready to scale their business up.
Okay, so let's start with their 10 action steps for starting a business. Some are like the usual stuff, like get over your fear, take action, but then they say vet your idea with people who aren't afraid to disagree with you.
Yeah.
That's not something you hear every day, is it?
It's easy to just look for validation, surround yourself with yes people. But to get good criticism, even if it's tough to hear, is really important for refining your concept and avoiding those pitfalls later on. Have you ever felt that? Like being hesitant to share your idea because someone might criticize it?
Oh, totally. It's like you want to protect your idea, especially when you're just starting out. But I've definitely learned the hard way, like getting that outside perspective, even if it's critical, is so valuable. And I think that's where this newsletter's advice is really good. It tells you to go find that honest feedback right away.
Right. And it goes beyond just getting feedback. It's about going out and actively finding different points of view. The newsletter really emphasizes like finding people who can offer different views and making you think outside your own assumptions and biases.
I like that a lot. It's about challenging your own ideas and not just trying to get people to agree with you.
Uh,
Speaking of challenging ideas, what about this four sticky note business plan? It almost seems way too simple, but it definitely has me intrigued.
it's all about making yourself like boil your idea down to the basics. Each sticky note is like a key element. You have your target customer, your value proposition, revenue model, and key activities. It's a great way to get like a quick overview so you don't get too lost in the details, especially when you're just starting to brainstorm.
So wait, so instead of spending weeks writing a big business plan, you're making like a visual thing in just a few minutes.
hmm
It seems kind of counterintuitive, but I guess I can see how it would help you focus on the most important parts. What do you think about that?
It's a great place to start, for sure. It really makes you think about the core parts of your business idea. And what's cool is it's flexible. So you can always add more sticky notes later as you're developing your idea more. But those first four, those core elements are a really good way to stay grounded.
Okay, so we have our sticky note plan. We've got our group of advisors to give us feedback. What's next?
Well, the newsletter really stresses how important it is to know your why. It might seem obvious, but so many entrepreneurs start a venture without really understanding their purpose. And that can be a big problem down the road.
Yeah, I could see that. Starting a business is like a marathon, right? Not a sprint. You're going to run into roadblocks and challenges and maybe even question why you're doing this at all. Having a strong why, that deeper reason for doing it, that could be what keeps you going.
Exactly. It's your North Star. It guides you when things get tough. Think about it. If your only reason is to make money, then what happens when the market changes or there's more competition or things just go wrong? Having a deeper purpose, a mission that really means something to you personally, can give you the strength and motivation to keep going when things get tough.
That's a really good point. It's not enough to just have a great idea. You need to have something driving you, a real passion that keeps you going even when things are hard. I think that's a really valuable lesson for anybody, not just people starting businesses. Finding your why can give you that push you need to get past any challenge, not just in business, but in life too.
Totally. It's true for everything we do. And the newsletter reminds us that figuring out your why is like a journey. It can change as you learn more, but it's really important to have that anchor to keep you steady. And speaking of staying steady, the newsletter also talks about stage gates.
Oh, right. Stage gates. Sounds kind of mystical, doesn't it? But I bet it's actually way more practical.
It is. Think of them as like checkpoints along the way. So before you put in more time and energy and resources, you stop and you look at how you're doing and ask some important questions. Are you still on track to reach your goals? Do you have to adjust your strategy? Or is it time to like completely change direction? Stage gates give you a way to make those tough decisions in a more organized way.
It's like those course corrections they do with spacecraft, right? You
Yeah.
can't just launch it and hope it works out. You got to make adjustments as you go to make sure you stay on course.
Yeah.
And I imagine this is really important when you're dealing with startups where things change so quickly.
Exactly. It's about avoiding, what do they call it, the sunk cost fallacy. It's that thing where you keep investing in something even though you can see it's not working. We've all been there. Holding on to a project or an idea, even when it's pretty clear we should move on, stage gates give you a way to step back and look at things objectively and help you avoid those emotional traps.
So instead of getting so attached to an idea that you pour everything into it, you're like setting up these points where you're forced to ask yourself, is this still a good idea? Is this still what I want to be doing? It's like having someone there to keep you accountable.
Yeah, it is. It's about making decisions based on data and being ready to change course when you need to. And that's a super important skill for any entrepreneur, even the experienced ones.
You know, it's funny. We always hear about how important passion and perseverance are for entrepreneurs. But this newsletter also points out how important it is to know when to quit something.
Right. It is refreshing.
So it's not about giving up. It's about knowing when to focus your energy on something better.
Right. It's like sometimes the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones who can walk away from an idea that's not working. It's not giving up. It's more like redirecting your energy to something that's more promising.
Yeah, I like how you put that. It's not failing, it's redirecting. And maybe that redirecting can lead to something even better. And speaking of support systems, this newsletter suggests thinking about an incubator.
Oh, yeah.
What are those again?
Incubators can be like total game changers, especially if it's your first time being an entrepreneur. Imagine having access to a whole network of mentors, advisors, and investors who are all there to help you succeed. They give you guidance, resources, and sometimes even funding to help you launch your business.
It's like a boot camp for startups, giving you the tools, training, and support you need to get through those first stages. Just the networking opportunities alone could be so valuable.
Totally. Incubators create a sense of community where you meet people going through the same things you are. You know, the good and the bad. It's that we're all in this together feeling that can make such a huge difference, especially when you're doubting yourself.
You know, that's something I've noticed about entrepreneurs. There's a real collaborative spirit, even among competitors. Like everyone understands that if one person succeeds, it helps everyone else too.
Yeah, I agree. There's a sense that we can all learn from each other and that sharing what we know can benefit everyone. And that actually brings us to another important topic the newsletter talks about: AI.
Oh, okay. AI. Now, this is where things start to sound really futuristic. The newsletter talks about things like ChatGPT for writing business plans and Sora for making videos with AI. Have you tried any of these things yourself?
Yeah, I have. I've actually used ChatGPT to brainstorm marketing stuff and summarize really long articles, and it's been surprisingly useful. It's not going to replace human creativity, of course, but it's great for getting ideas and getting over that writer's block.
So it's like having a virtual brainstorming buddy who can just come up with ideas whenever you need them. That's pretty amazing. What about Sora? Have you tried making videos with AI?
Not as much as I've used ChatGPT, but I've seen some really impressive stuff. Imagine being able to create professional-looking videos for your website or social media without needing fancy equipment or a whole production crew. It's a total game changer for startups that don't have a lot of money.
It's like having a whole studio in your computer. It's crazy to think how technology is making things more fair, giving everyone access to tools that only big companies used to have.
Exactly. AI is giving entrepreneurs the power to create content, automate things, and get insights that were impossible just a few years ago. Yeah, it really is exciting to see how AI is changing everything for entrepreneurs. But we can't forget that AI is just a tool, and like any tool, we have to use it carefully and ethically.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The newsletter mentions that too,
Yeah.
Like, don't just trust AI without thinking about potential biases or ethical problems. We still need humans to be in charge, right?
Absolutely. We can't just feed data into some program and expect it to magically fix all our problems. It's about using AI to work with human intelligence, not replace it. Oh, hey. Speaking of human intelligence, this newsletter has like a ton of book recommendations for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, they have 25 books listed here. Wow. Everything from like the classics, The Lean Startup and 0 to 1 to books I've never even heard of. It's a bit much, to be honest. Where do you even start with a list like this?
Well, I guess it depends on what you're looking for, right? Are you like trying to see if your idea is good? Build a team, come up with a marketing strategy. But this list has a lot of different topics, so it's helpful to have a goal in mind when you look at it.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's say I'm just brainstorming, trying to figure out if my idea is even worth pursuing. What books from this list would you recommend?
If that's where you are, then The Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick is like required reading. It's all about asking the right questions to get honest feedback from potential customers, even if it's not what you want to hear.
So it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, avoiding those yes men and really finding out if people would actually use and pay for your product.
Exactly. The book makes this funny analogy. Imagine you're pitching your idea to your mom. Of course, she loves you and wants to support you, but she might not be the best person to give you real feedback on your business. The book teaches you how to ask questions that give you real insights, not just empty compliments.
Wow, that's clever. I love the title too. It's so memorable. Okay, what about books that are about building a strong team and a good company culture? That seems super important, especially as a company grows.
Yeah, for that, I'd recommend Traction by Gino Wickman. It's a really practical guide to getting everyone on the same page and working towards the same goals.
So it's about making sure everyone's aligned and accountable, which can be hard as a team gets bigger and people have more specialized roles.
Right. The book gives you a system for setting clear goals, defining responsibilities, and tracking progress, which can be super helpful for keeping everyone focused and moving in the same direction.
I could see how that would be important, especially at the beginning when you're still figuring things out and deciding who does what.
Yeah.
Okay, another thing I'm always interested in is marketing. What books from this list would you recommend for someone who wants to build a strong brand and connect with their target audience?
Well, there are a few good ones here. Blue Ocean Strategy by W. Chan Kim and Renee Mulborn is a classic for a reason. It makes you think differently about competition and find market spaces where you can create your own demand instead of fighting for customers in a crowded market.
Yes. The blue ocean idea. It's about finding those unmet needs and creating something truly unique that sets you apart from everyone else. It's powerful, but it can also be a little abstract, don't you think?
Yeah, that's true. It's a high-level strategy. If you want something more tactical, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller is a good one.
Oh, I think I've heard of that one. It's about making your brand's message clear and making sure it connects with your audience.
Yeah, exactly. It's about creating a story that people connect with emotionally and makes them want to be a part of your brand.
I like that. So it's not just about shouting your message as loud as you can. It's more about crafting a story that people actually want to hear and be a part of. Okay, so we've talked about books for testing ideas, building teams, and marketing. What about books that are about the personal challenges of being an entrepreneur? Starting and running a business can be really tough on your mental and emotional well-being.
Oh, for sure. Entrepreneurship is a total roller coaster. For that, I'd say read The Founder's Dilemmas by Noam Wasserman. It talks about the hard choices entrepreneurs have to make and how those decisions affect not just the business, but their personal lives and relationships too.
It's like a reminder that being an entrepreneur isn't just about numbers and profits. It's about navigating those messy human relationships and making decisions that have consequences that reach far beyond the business itself.
Exactly. And sometimes those decisions mean making really difficult trade-offs. The book explores those tough choices and gives you a way to make smarter decisions.
That's so important.
Yeah.
It's easy to get so caught up in the hustle of everything and just wanting to be successful that you forget there's more to life than just the business.
You're telling me. And that's why I also recommend The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. It might be a bit controversial, but it really makes you think about work-life balance and how to create a lifestyle that matches your values and goals.
Yeah, that title, it's definitely attention-grabbing. I mean, who wouldn't want to only work 4 hours a week?
Yeah.
But I think the real value of the book is that it makes you question all those assumptions we have about work and think about how to have more freedom and flexibility in your life. Whether you actually get to a 4-hour work week or not almost doesn't matter.
Right. It's about challenging the way things are usually done and creating a life that works for you, not the other way around.
I love that. And I think a lot of people feel that way, not just entrepreneurs.
Definitely. And speaking of challenging how things are usually done, 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel is like a must-read for anyone who wants to create something truly new and different.
Oh yeah, 0 to 1. This is one that says competition is bad, right? It argues that entrepreneurs should try to create monopolies instead of just making small improvements.
Exactly. Thiel believes that real innovation happens when you create something totally new, not just copying what's already out there. He wants entrepreneurs to go for being the best in a specific market, not just battling it out in a crowded space.
It's a bold idea, for sure, but it really gets you thinking. It makes you question everything you thought you knew about markets and how many customers there are and encourages you to think bigger.
Totally. And it kind of goes along with the blue ocean strategy we were talking about before, that whole idea of finding a market where no one else is.
So it's not about being the best in a market where everyone is competing. It's about being the only one in a totally new market. It's risky, but it could also be really rewarding. It could be how you create something really groundbreaking. And I see why this book is so popular with startups.
It really is. And it's not just about the big ideas. Thiel also gives practical advice on building a team, getting funding, and developing a product that really stands out.
So it's a good balance of big ideas and practical advice. Okay, we've talked about books for testing ideas, building teams, marketing, and the personal stuff that comes with being an entrepreneur. Are there any other types of books on this list that we haven't mentioned yet?
Well, there are a couple of books that focus on the money part of starting and running a business. The $100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau is a popular one. It's about starting a business without spending a lot of money, proving that you don't need a ton of cash to be successful.
That's a great message for anyone who's afraid to start a business because they think they need a lot of money.
Exactly. The book has all these stories about entrepreneurs who built successful businesses with almost no money. It shows how important it is to be resourceful, creative, and just have that entrepreneurial spirit.
So it's about finding creative solutions and working your way up. That's really inspiring.
Yeah.
Any other books about the money side of things that you'd recommend?
Yeah. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki is a classic for a reason. It challenges the way we normally think about money and investing. It encourages people to learn about finances and build assets that make money for them passively.
It's a personal finance book, but it's definitely relevant for entrepreneurs because it makes you think differently about money and how to create multiple streams of income, which can be really important when you're running a business that has its ups and downs.
Absolutely. It's about building financial security and having options. And speaking of options, the newsletter also has a few books that talk about the different paths entrepreneurs can take, like building a lifestyle business or growing big enough to sell.
Oh yeah. Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat by Colin Campbell, the guy who writes the newsletter. Seems to be all about building businesses specifically to sell them later.
Yeah, it kind of is. Like he's recommending his own expertise. And then there's The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, which is about some of the common myths people believe about starting and running a small business.
I've heard that's a really good one. What are some of the myths it debunks?
Well, one big myth is that if you're good at something, you'll automatically be good at running a business doing that thing. Gerber says entrepreneurs need to learn actual business skills, not just be good at their craft.
So, like, you could be a great baker, but that doesn't mean you'll automatically be good at running a bakery? Makes sense. What other myths does it talk about?
Another myth is that entrepreneurs love taking risks. Gerber says that successful entrepreneurs are actually really good at reducing risk. They take calculated risks and focus on building systems and processes that minimize uncertainty.
So it's not about just jumping in without thinking. It's about being strategic and trying to avoid risks whenever you can. That's a good point.
It is, and I think it reminds us that successful entrepreneurs are usually the ones who plan carefully and execute well, not just those who take blind leaps of faith.
Well said. Wow, we've gone through a lot of these book recommendations. It's clear that this newsletter isn't just giving basic advice. It's giving entrepreneurs a ton of resources no matter what stage they're at. But with all this talk about books and strategies, it's easy to forget about actually using this stuff in the real world, right?
That's the real question, isn't it? How do we use all of this? I think it starts with knowing yourself. What are you good at as an entrepreneur? What are your weaknesses? What are your goals and what's important to you? Once you know those things about yourself, you can start to figure out which resources and strategies will be most helpful to you.
So it's about being intentional and choosing carefully. You don't have to read every book or use every strategy. It's more about finding what works for you and fits with your own goals and situation.
Exactly. And it's also about remembering that being an entrepreneur is a journey. It's not like you reach a destination and then you're done. There will be ups and downs and challenges and wins. The important thing is to enjoy the ride, learn from everything that happens, and never stop growing.
It's cool how this newsletter has like the big important stuff, but also those little details that can really trip people up at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like they even have a whole section on picking a business name and making a logo. I've seen people get stuck on that stuff for weeks.
It's true. You can get stuck analyzing everything, especially when you're just starting. And this newsletter, it's all about keeping things moving.
Right.
Like they say, get that domain name right away. Don't spend too much time on the logo. Just use a site like 99 Designs or Fiverr to get something decent quickly.
Yeah.
What's important is launching. not having the perfect branding right from the start.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, especially for someone who's, a perfectionist.
Hmm.
It's easy to get lost in the details and forget about the big picture.
Right.
At some point, you just got to go for it and start building.
Totally. And as you're building, you can always tweak things as you go.
Yeah.
It's that whole minimum viable product thing, right? Get your idea out there fast so you can get feedback and make it better.
So it's all about being flexible, adapting, and learning as you go.
Exactly.
Speaking of learning, can we talk about AI again for a sec?
Sure.
We talked about tools like ChatGPT and Sora, but this newsletter seems to be saying that AI can be like a much bigger part of a business,
Oh, yeah, for sure. We're just getting started with what AI can do.
Really?
Yeah. Imagine using AI for market research, like finding trends and patterns that humans would never see.
Wow.
Or using AI to personalize marketing, sending each customer a message that's just for them based on what they like and how they act.
That's incredible.
It's mind-blowing.
And it seems like AI is changing so fast.
It is, yeah.
What's new today might be old news tomorrow. Do you think it's important for entrepreneurs to stay ahead of the game with AI, even if they're not, like, tech people?
I think it's super important. Even if you're not a programmer or a data scientist, just knowing what AI can do and how it can help your business is going to be so important for staying competitive, in the future.
Yeah.
It's like when the internet first came out, the people who got on board early had a huge advantage.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
So it's not about becoming an AI expert. It's more about understanding how to use it to solve problems, work more efficiently, and make your business better.
Exactly.
So this newsletter is basically telling entrepreneurs to be adaptable, embrace change, and be open to trying new technology.
Absolutely. And I think that's like the main theme of the whole newsletter,
Right.
whether it's using the lean startup method, figuring out your why, or using AI. It's all about being open to new ideas, being willing to learn and grow, and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone.
That's something I've always admired about successful entrepreneurs.
What's that?
That ability to adapt, to change direction, and to see challenges as opportunities.
Yeah.
It's a mindset that's helpful in any part of life, not just business.
I totally agree. And that's what makes this newsletter so great.
Yeah.
It's not just a bunch of tips. It's like a guide to developing that entrepreneurial mindset,
Right.
that spirit of innovation, resilience, and always learning new things.
Well said. Okay, so we've talked about a lot in this deep dive,
We have.
from the practical steps of starting a business to the bigger ideas of what it means to be an entrepreneur.
Uh-huh.
But before we finish, I'd love to hear what really stuck with you from this newsletter.
Okay.
What are the main things you'll be thinking about?
I think for me, it's that focus on taking action and keeping the momentum going.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in planning, but what really matters is taking that first step, even a small one, building from there.
Right.
It's about being okay with things not being perfect, learning from your mistakes, and always trying to improve.
That's a great takeaway.
Yeah,
It's about getting things done, not waiting for them to be perfect.
exactly.
How about you? What really stood out to you? I think the idea of finding your why was really powerful.
Yeah.
It's easy to get lost in the everyday work of running a business and forget about the bigger picture,
Uh-huh.
but having that strong sense of purpose, that can keep you going, keep you motivated, and help you make decisions that you really believe in.
That's so true. And I think that applies to everything in life, not just business.
Yeah.
Knowing your why can give you clarity, direction, and a feeling of satisfaction in everything you do.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with something to think about.
Yep.
What's your why? What are you passionate about? What problem do you want to solve? And how can all the things we talked about today help you take that next step?
Being an entrepreneur has its challenges, but it also has amazing rewards.
It does.
It's a journey worth taking. Embrace the unknown, stay curious, and never stop learning. You never know what amazing things you might accomplish.